My name is Tony Roethler. I'm currently serving in the United States Army Reserve. First tour of service, I was an E5 sergeant, and my second tour, I was in staff sergeant first class. I served in the Iraq campaign, and I served in the Afghanistan campaign. March of 2003 to May of 2004, I was in Iraq, and March 2011 till January 2012, I was in Afghanistan. Currently 18 years total. Yeah, I joined February 12th, 1997. I signed the paper stating that I want to join the United States Army Reserve. I had just turned 18. I chose to join the service. Went to the MEP Center while I was in high school yet. That's basically where you go do your testing, make sure, and get your job that you want to do. And then September, went off to basic training, graduated that in November. Actually, I'm sorry. Yes, September and October was basic training, then November, December, and just a little bit into January was my AIT, my advanced individual stuff, where I was going to learn about my job. And then I was doing, from that point, went back to Decorah, did all these ATs, annual trainings, regular weekend stuff that we had to do, and then 2003 of February, we got called up, went down to Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri, got trained up, and then May, we went over, actually I'm sorry, March we went over and then to Iraq and then came back in May of 2004, and then we had a nice short stint there of going back doing the regular annual trainings, and then in 2010 we got the call up again to go to Afghanistan. So at that time, now we had lots of time to train up because they realized we need more training. So I spent a month up at Fort McCoy in October, spent 2 weeks up there in October 2010, went back up there in November for 3 weeks of training, got some December off, and then January was on active duty 2011, and then we came back in 2012 of January. And then from that point, I went up to Fort McCoy for a couple years, over to Arlington Heights, Illinois, Chicago area for 10 months, and now back to Fort McCoy. It was 1997. I just graduated, and that's in May, and then in September I started my training. At that time, that was the first time I ever left my family for a great distance, or a great amount of time. So I was gone for 8 weeks for training, and then they were able to see me graduate, and then I was gone for another 8 weeks of training. So, a little homesick. They didn't want to see me go, but they knew that was something I had to do because I signed the paper. They knowing that I had to do this job. Training at that time, I thought it was tough. Through basic, I didn't know what to expect. I'd just coming out of high school. At that time, you don't know what to expect. You're like a kid yet. And now our training that we do, it's a whole different story. I mean, it's tough, but it's just more physical demanding, mentally, physically. I mean, it's not like it used to be. I trained at Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri. I had an airplane from Waterloo down there. I feel like I was scared at first because I had no idea what they were expecting of me. And then as time grew on, it got more comfortable and felt that this was my career path. Oh yeah. I thought I was on cloud nine, that nobody could stop me. They train you. They train you to be. You're a fighter. You're in the military, and now it's just. So you bring that mentality back home with you, and then everybody goes through it. Everybody goes through it, and now it's just like you can see new troops, and it's just like better take that chip off your block because it ain't gonna last long around here. So, went through basic training. I just had a girlfriend, and you know how that is. It's a relationship. It's tough. You're leaving behind somebody that you care about. And both times I deployed, I was married, and same thing. You put a lot of stress on the family, especially your wife. They got to take care of everything at home, kids. It's a one-person show at that time. They their partner to help them through that. So it's really tough. I grew up in Alta Vista, Iowa. I just went to the 12th grade. I was all around everything you can think of. I welded, I farmed, did some auto body work throughout high school, and then finally joined the reserves, and then currently found jobs here in the New Hampton area, Decorah area, even up in Minnesota, and until now currently in Cedar Falls. Right now, my job I'm at in Cedar Falls. I married Lacey Steenhart. She was from the Elma area where I currently reside. I had a great uncle. He served in the Coast Guard for a short time, and I feel that maybe it was my turn, and I figured just try it out, see what it was like. Many reasons. I felt it was my time. Nobody in my family has done this, so it was just one of those options that I had, and I felt that it was probably going to be a good thing for me at that time. Because there's a unit in Decorah, and I felt that after the first 6 years, if I didn't like it, I didn't have to waste my time driving all over. There was a unit real close to my home, so if I didn't like it, at least I wasn't out that much, and the unit was close. Okay, deployments was family. When I went to Iraq, I had a 3-month-old baby I had to leave behind. And so when I came back, she was already walking, so I missed out on a lot of that stuff. This second time I went to Afghanistan, I had 4 children at the time. So I missed out on 2 being in school, going through their events, and watching my other 2 kind of grow up a little bit. I know they were a little hesitant at first because they didn't know what to expect, as I didn't know what to expect. And as time went on, they got real comfortable, and like both times I had to leave, they were scared. You could see that, and they just knew that this was something I had to do. Iowa, Middletown, Iowa, Fort McCoy, Wisconsin, Chicago, Illinois, and then of course overseas I was on BIOP, the Baghdad International Airport, and that was at Kandahar City, and back to Fort McCoy now. I've always been in the maintenance side of the house, so if it came to ordering parts or fixing vehicles, that's basically all I've been doing. Except my last deployment, I was a platoon sergeant and a motor pool sergeant, so I was in charge of the troops, not so much the hands-on aspect, but the leadership role. Scary. Very, very scary, because you don't know what's going on around you. It can be confusing. It's crazy. It's crazy. It's tough. It's tough. You rely on your family for a lot of things, as well as friends. Basically it's like a network. You need to have family. You need to have your friends. You need to have that battle buddy that you can go to. First deployment, it could have been anywhere from being a saw gunner going out on a patrol to fixing a vehicle. My second deployment was long hours, 14 to 16-hour days, making sure equipment was ready to roll off the fob for our other folks so they were safe to go. Sometimes going on a quick convoy to retrieve stuff, broken down vehicles from other places. My free time, a lot of it is spending time with the troops. It's a bond, especially when you're in a wartime situation, it's a bond that is very unique because you're dependent on who's to the left of you, who's to the right of you, and therefore they're relying on you too to keep them safe. So you build this bond, this connection, that a very, very trustworthy bond, that they just became your new best friend, and you carry that on throughout your life. First deployment was hanging out with the guys, watching movies, killing time, anything that would kill time, because time is it's no joke. It feels like the clock just stops when you're that young and you are just getting your feet wet when it comes to the military. Second deployment, I almost had no time, but when I did, I Skyped my family back home. and sometimes just took some time for myself just to get away from it all, get away from the troops, and just my time to debrief and just be me. The first deployment, we slept in a tent. It was a GP medium tent. It was basically like living in Korea, you know, when it came to that aspect. Well, we didn't even have floors. There was just the ground below us, sleeping on cots. It was good. It worked. It kept us dry. Second deployment, we had these nice tents that they were air conditioned, they were heated, they had beds. We were able to build walls in there, so we had our own little rooms to actually get away from it all. Well, for basic training, it was a lot of soldiers around, a lot of drill instructors, a lot of yelling. You have that. My first deployment, I remember sleeping under the stars because we didn't have our camp basically set up yet. We had just pushed in the middle of the night, and we were in an open field. But as time went on, we built up, and it became our little place. Second deployment, we fell in on a FOB, a forward operating base, that was already built up. We just basically exchanged with another unit that was leaving, and we were taking over for them, so everything was in place. Food in both deployments actually was really good. Oh yeah, you miss the smells of home, and especially the food, because that's one thing you can always go back on, is that smell of food, and you knew you were home. So sometimes, you know, like Skype and whatnot, you hear about the girls and what they ate, and they tell you what they ate for supper that night or whatnot, and you're just like, oh man, I miss that. Believe it or not, it's almost like Iowa. I mean, we didn't see snow, but it got cold. It would get down to 32, but just real quick. But yeah, it would get cold where you'd want to wear a coat, and then after that, after the morning the sun came out, you were fine. The first time we started out in Kuwait, and that's wicked hot year-round. That's just horrible. We went up to Baghdad International Airport, looked that up on the map. That was like a long haul. We were in trucks the whole time. So we were right on the airport. The second deployment was right next to Kandahar City. So we got to see the city from the distance, and the airport that we usually went to was about 15, 20 miles away. My first deployment, I was a SAW gunner. It was an M249 automatic squad weapon. It's a SAW, S-A-W, squad automatic weapon. It's a machine gun. It's belt driven. It basically, at that time in '03, that was your main crew serve weapon, meaning that was your force. So if something happened, that was the one you want to be behind to help, because, and I got a chance to be behind a 50 cal. That shoots off a pretty big round. And now they don't really use saws too much anymore. They do, but they're on your individual, meaning that's your assigned weapon. They've got all different weapon systems now that they use that are bigger and better. Deployment was just a M4. I can't give you exact numbers, but first deployment, I want to say both first and second deployment right around 130, 40-ish. Oh yeah, I traveled all over. The military sent me to Honduras, Guatemala, El Salvador, Germany, Kuwait, Iraq, Afghanistan, Virginia, basically a lot of places. A lot of places that typically people don't go. A lot of it was for annual training. We actually built schools in Central America. We built schools because I was with the engineers in Decorah, so we got to see that happen from the ground up. No, yeah, that was all annual training events there. Oh yeah, we saw a lot of locals would come up, and they would give you fruits and whatnot. I mean, oh yeah, we saw all kinds of stuff. It was neat. If you had a chance, go to Central America. It's pretty. They really enjoyed us being around. And another thing is that down there, you know, they've got their little cliques where there's bad people. So when they knew we were around, they felt safer. So it gave them a sense of security. Leave my family. Oh yeah, through Skype. We had phones. You just had to use a phone card, but Skyping seemed to be the easiest at that time, because that way you can have that face-to-face interaction. I tried every day. Every day I tried, especially my family, because I had to see my girls. A lot changed. Like the first time, didn't have Skype. That was a phone call. You don't get that interaction with a phone call, it's just a voice. But like with Skype, at least you get that face to face. You see things growing, and like I would have my wife at the time, I'd say, just turn the computer around in the house a little bit. Let me see what the house looks like again, And it's just like, oh, that's home, You just get that sense, and you just put everything behind you. And then when you're done, then you put that in the back burner, and you bring the military back up front and focus and go on about your day. They wanted us to make sure that we maintained our OPSEC, security. We don't give out anything important, numbers, where we're going, what we're doing. Just talk about day-to-day events. Keep it to where if you do get hacked in, they're not going to get any information from you. Because, potentially that could be bad for you as a unit and your family back home. So they really just stress that. I mean, some people probably talk too much, but you can't control everybody. At first it's tough for them because they're not used to doing the role of two people. So they've got to figure out in their little world how they're going to manage to make things happen. And when I came home, I couldn't believe how well there was a schedule in place of day to day, not hour to hour, but every day there's something that has to happen, and how it worked and how the kids adjusted. So I was really impressed that they have to pick up for the two people, and they are the one parent. Oh, big adjustment. Oh yeah. I remember when I came back the second time, I had to take a week or two off and just sit in the back seat and go, I got to see how this show is being ran. I'm used to how I ran things overseas because I was in that leadership role. I had to take care of troops. I had to make sure that they were safe, that I knew where they were at all the time. And if they were going on a convoy, it was ultimately my responsibility. Sitting back home, I had to take the back seat and watch how Lacey was working, interacting with the kids, and how the day-to-day motions were going, so I could pick up and help. I couldn't just come in storming and go, no, this is the way it's going to be, because that's ultimately going to hurt the kids because they've already been on a schedule, so they already know what's going on. So, yeah, it's a big adjustment, huge adjustment. When I really felt myself being, you have yourself feeling down at times. You're just like, I don't want to do this. I want to go home. I'm tired. But then you just think about what you're there for and the good that you're doing for these people. And then you start focusing on that, and then you put your family in the back burner, so that way you maintain your focus, because you're there for a reason. It's not like you can just get on a plane and go home. Family. Family's if anybody says any different, then there's something wrong with them, because everybody misses their family. Yeah, the first deployment, I only was in a couple conflicts where one of our trucks was hit ahead of me, and I'm not going to get into detail about it, but basically it was like you're on pins and needles. It's crazy weird that we had to set up a perimeter around that truck, and we had a person that we had to get out of there, which thankfully they're safe, they're fine. I mean, they got skinned up a little bit because they got a little bit of shrapnel from whatever was on the side of the road. Second deployment, there was a team of 4 insurgents outside our gates that we had no clue. Thank God we had a camera in the sky because we saw. Yeah, because it escalated in a quick hurry. I mean, we were sitting there working, and next thing you know, you hear commotion all around you, and you have no idea where it's coming from because you're not sitting there looking for that and ready for that, so you don't know. And yeah, we got on our gear and we went over to our bunker because that's where we had to go, because when it's something like that you can't see, you need to find cover. So yeah, I mean, it's scary until you figured out what was all going on. And then when that one vehicle-borne IED hit, it was like from here to the front office away. So it was just loud. It was crazy, just commotion. At that time, that was the only time that anything happened to our fob. Thank God, and it happened right away when we got there in April. These 4 insurgents, 2 of them were sniping. They were shooting inside our fob. They were outside the gate on a building, And then we had 7 RPGs come in, rocket-propelled grenades. A few people got hurt, nobody got killed. And then one of them set off a vehicle-borne IED right outside our area, and that was a messy deal. And then we had one more on the other side of our base that did the same thing with a vehicle-borne IED. It was the first time in Iraq was when that one bomb went off a truck ahead of us, and then this last deployment when we had all that commotion going on there at the FOB. The scariest thing I saw is when you see troops that are hurt, injured. Because I don't know so much if it's a scary thing, but to me it's just like, that could be anybody. It could be me. It could be one of my troops that you see all banged up, hurt up, and it's just like, so that's kind of scary because you don't know. Good. A lot of them were there. They wanted to help. They wanted their countries turned around because they don't like that living. They like the way we live. What surprised me the most? Well, I mean, one thing that surprised me the second go around was the amount of technology involved that we didn't have the first time. That surprised me. I mean, we were using things that I'd never seen or heard of before that we had to train up on prior, and I'm like, this is wow. I mean, technology went a long ways from 2003 till 2011, so that surprised me. No, I never got injured besides your typical stuff, but nothing bad injured. And sick-wise, just the common cold stuff. Never really anything besides that. Oh, there's so much stuff I like. I couldn't tell you. I don't know if there was really a desired food, because at that point, just anything homemade was better than nothing. Yes, I did. I was awarded the Samuel Sharp. It's an award that through our Ordnance Corps, that one of the warrant officers put in for me because he saw how well we excelled in our maintenance and how we incorporated our maintenance program with other units and helped them. That was a big deal. Oh, I've got lots of friends. Everywhere I go, I see a face I've seen before. Yes. Maybe not every day, but I try to ping them every chance I get. Yes, I do call a lot of the guys from Decorah from time to time, or text them. Like when the Iraq War, when they finally shut that one down, I was in Afghanistan, which is kind of unique in its own way. When I was in Iraq, I remember them. We were sitting there when they captured Saddam Hussein. I was in Iraq, and then another weird thing is when I'm sitting there in Afghanistan, how they've got Osama bin Laden captured. So I thought it was kind of ironic how I was in both conflicts and both these dictators that got captured when I was at both places. That was kind of ironic, weird. But like in Iraq, we were just sitting around watching the news because we had a little bit of cable there, and it was weird. I mean, you just sit there and think, it's like, is this over? Are we going to continue on? Because you don't know. It's like, wow, they captured him. Holy crap, This is weird. We're in this country. I mean, where they found him at was just, I mean, it was a little ways away from us, but it's like, God, he's here the whole time, It's just a weird. And then Afghanistan, kind of the same thing. Are we done with this? But we knew we weren't, because they always had the next guy in line was ready to step up, and they knew what was going on, so. Just weird feelings. Just weird in general, knowing that you're there and they were there. Good, real good. Yeah, the community I live in there in Elma, they were really very, very supportive. Very different. They tell us the people don't stop because you leave. They keep moving on. So when you come home, there's a big adjustment. I mean, there might have been people that moved out of town that you didn't know about, people moving in. Just everything in general is just different. You knew in the back of your head that they didn't stop what they were doing because I was gone. So it's like coming back and starting all over. I mean, they talk to you, but they don't know how to talk to you because they're like, ooh, this guy just came back from major conflict. Are we going to say something that's going to trigger him, that make him mad or yell or whatever? And, I never did, but they don't know how to react to somebody that's been in that situation. So it's a learning curve for them as well. The first time when we came back, there was nothing in place for us. They were just like, thank you for your service. Enjoy your time with your family. Now, we sat at our demo station for 7 days, and we were going through classes and whatnot, so we could prepare ourselves, mentally prepare ourselves, and that helped. It really did. So they know what they're doing now when it comes to getting us integrated back into the civilian world. Currently, yes. As a matter of fact, I just got done with my battle assembly for April last weekend. That's just, we go up like Fort McCoy, we do our training for Saturday, Sunday, hanging out with the guys. Sometimes we had a couple females, but like I said, it all comes back to that bond, that special bond that you get with those people, because it's very unique. Very, very unique. It made me be a better person, because as I'm put in this leadership role, I'm ultimately in charge of these guys, and they've got to rely on me to get them what they need, information pushed down to them if they're leaving. Basically, I've got all these people's lives in my hand that I need to make sure that they get home. And when I came home, it was just like, it made me I've always been a caring person, but it made me even more caring, because it's like a life can come and go at any time, especially overseas. And I generally give people a lot of respect, more so than I did in the past. I would say a lot of it's the caring aspect. Biggest impact on me. There's a lot there too. There's a lot of things that changed my life, especially after the second one, except being in charge of people. Wow, there's so much. I mean, like my thinking skill set, that's all changed now because of that. When I was there, if I didn't have 100 things going on at once, it wasn't a typical day. So coming back home, it kind of plays a role into that too. That it's like, oh, I didn't know I could really do that until you're in that position. So there's a lot. I've seen a lot. I've done a lot. So there's so much that if I would have known these questions, I could have listed a lot of things out. But on the spot like this, it's just like, I can only give you a couple things. Sorry. Big one is respect. I learned that in order to receive respect, you need to give respect, especially to your subordinates. If you want to treat them like crap, they're going to treat you like crap. And then they're going to look at you as, really not as a leader, but more as who is this guy? They're not going to look up to you. They're not going to trust you. They're going to go elsewhere. Respect is a big thing. Loyalty, honesty. There's so many values that we live from day to day. Boy, that's another tough one, because there's so much that you can do. I don't know. Honestly, I do not know. I question that quite a bit, honestly. Because it's, would I have gone to high school, or I'm sorry, not high school, but college? I don't know. If I didn't join the military, I wouldn't have met my wife because of the situations that were in play at that time. It's weird. You just don't know. Honestly, would I have kids? I don't know. I couldn't tell you what I would be doing. That you're going to find that out yourselves in your life decisions you make when you get older. Should I have done this over this? You don't know. That's mixed up. I don't know if I want my children at this point because they're so young, but when they become younger teenagers, younger adults, when they turn 18, that's kind of like their decision. As of right now, I really don't want to. because of the stuff that I'm doing, but I'll still support them. When I go back home, I work for the military yet. As a civilian, I work on the surrounding units, military equipment, so I work on their vehicles down in Cedar Falls. So I'm around the military virtually every day. Currently, Elma. A little bit. You said you had to learn your new role, because you're not in an Army role anymore. You're a civilian, so you need to put that off to the side and now take on the civilian world and how that's done, because civilian and military don't interact. Them two roles are completely different. So you got to drop the one and get your mindset in the civilian side of the house. I use it day to day. It's my kids, they're on a schedule. We know what's got to happen. It's not written on paper. It's verbally talked about what needs to happen, how things are done. And it only betters them at that too, because if they want to know why do we have to do that? Well, this is why you need to do this. And when you explain it to them, then they get it. Oh, okay, I get it. That's why we're doing this. So yes, I think the military helped me in a lot of ways in order to help me raise my children. The first time, I couldn't wait. Honestly, I was 24 years old. I could not wait to get out of that place. I would just want to get home. The second time, I built such a good relation with the people I was around. When we left, my battle buddy, that's our guy we go to, that's who we talk about every little issue we got. We know that they're our go-to guy. That's like you and your best friend. You have one best friend where you just say everything to, and you're like, just keep this between us. Well, I had my battle buddy, and we talked. That's where I was able to get away from the lower enlisted troops and just let my day go and be like, oh, get it out and feel better. We both were sitting there on the helipad waiting to get out of our fob to go back to the airport, Kandahar Airfield. And we both looked at each other and said, we're not ready to leave. We felt we weren't done yet, but we had to leave. And that may sound kind of weird for you guys, but until you play the role and you live it, it's a whole different story. We felt like we still had another month in us to stick around. It's one of those weird things. It's hard to explain until you've been there and you've done it, and then it all comes out, and it's. Oh yeah, actually we worked together. I got him a job down there where we work. So my battle buddy, I get to work with day to day. It's great. I mean, we talk a lot. We get to. So anything like if I have anything like family stuff going on, I can be like, hey Jeff, come here, man. I gotta talk to you. So. Oh yeah, and he knows it's between us, and what he tells me, it's between us. It's good. I mean, it's good to have those connections in your life, because sometimes you need them. Sometimes you need to be able to call that guy up and go, hey, I'm having a bad day, and they're always going to be there for you. I would, but they tore the fob down. It's no longer there. It went back to the local nationals. They've got their fields there now. So yes, actually I would go back to both places just to see. I know a lot of it isn't there anymore in both places, but it would be that memory thing where you could visually see everything and how it was placed in. Plus I got pictures. I was up in a helicopter. I took a bunch of pictures. So I can always go back and look at it. No, and actually my buddy Jeff, he was on a couple for the radio station, so he may try to hook me up. I would love to. I'd love to help another veteran out and get them out there. What advice do I have? Boy, that's a good one. Advice as in military-wise, or just advice in general? Military-wise, if you're going to join the military, there's so many unique opportunities for you. There's lots of job sets, a lot of skill sets there. Honestly, if you're into technology, you would fit in great, because there's so much stuff changing in the military with the technology side that you could go far, really far. And officer or enlisted, either way, you're gonna do good. Oh, I got lots of stories. Oh boy. A lot of them you don't want to hear, because they're guy stories. They're things that guys do when they're bored, and I mean it's fun, it's all in good natured, but I'd rather not get into that if I don't have to. Feels great. Feels great. With everything I've done, with everything I've seen, I'll take any bad day over some of the stuff that I had to go through. Just knowing that I'm here, that's a blessing on its own.